Hello, my name is Mackie, and welcome back to another edition of 60 Super Bowls in 60 Days. It is time for me to tell you a little bit of history within all the Super Bowls and the NFL champions, because I wanted to use this as a little context for the final Super Bowl review of my Super Bowl reviews, but not for now. There will be one more Super Bowl review after this. But let's just give you a context. This is the 1965 NFL Championship between the Cleveland Browns and the Green Bay Packers. Yes, the Cleveland Browns are actually a good team. Don't laugh. This was a 23-12 beatdown in which Vince Lombardi won his, well, I think this is his very first championship, I guess, but it doesn't matter. This is one of his many championships he has in his legendary career as a Green Bay Packers head coach. Now, why was this important? Because the following year was 1966, in which the Green Bay Packers beat the Dallas Cowboys to advance to the very first Super Bowl that began taking place. It was 34-27. And of course, the Green Bay Packers went on to go to Super Bowl one and beat the Kansas City Chiefs for the very first Super Bowl. Now on Super Bowl two, the Green Bay did it again by beating the Oakland Raiders. By winning the 65 NFL championship, the Super Bowl one and two, Green Bay has done something that no other professional football team has ever done since, which is win three straight championships, a three-peat in many eyes. And the fact they have done it is incredible with Bart Starr and Vince Lombardi being coaching and all kind of stuff. But you notice, Akeem, that I've already showed you the first two Super Bowls in which the Packers won it. Because no team in this Super Bowl era currently today has ever done a three-peat. And I will tell you one thing. It is hard to get a three-peat in today's NFL. It is even harder even back then. But the Green Bay Packers were the very first team to try to attempt that. Did not work. And then many others step up to the bat and try to pull it off. First off, Super Bowl 7 went to the Miami Dolphins in that undefeated season against the Commanders, that crazy 14-7 game. And then it was the no-name defense and, Larry Sonka running all over the mighty Purple People Eaters and Bud Grant and the Minnesota Vikings to win Super Bowl 8. But it didn't three-peat the following year. That distinction go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who also beat the Minnesota Vikings 16-6 on the back of Teddy Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Larry Brown, Joe Green, Mel Blount, Mike Wagner, the whole gang. Of course, the mighty Pittsburgh Steelers back in the 70s. And then they won Super Bowl 10, in which they beat the Dallas Cowboys in one of the most goated Super Bowls I ever saw. And by the way, if you haven't, just go watch all my videos talking about it. It was an incredible Super Bowl. And the fact that, no, this was not the go-to Super Bowl, but you can get the point. There were so many Hall of Famers, of course, coaching, quarterback, the whole works. And the Pittsburgh Steelers went on to win their second straight Super Bowl. But they didn't three-peat, which lead us to Super Bowl 13 when Pittsburgh once again have an opportunity. And they did it against the Dallas Cowboys again in one of the most goated Super Bowls ever. Now, this is a Super Bowl that talks about all the Hall of Fames, coaches, and all this kind of stuff. And if it wasn't for that little Jackie Smith, this history would have been flipped the other way. But it didn't, and Pittsburgh won their third Super Bowl ever. Their third in the last, well, let's just say 75, 76, and 79. Third in like 5 years. Pretty much the modern day dynasty. And then to close out the 70s, the Pittsburgh Steelers go to LA, the Rose Bowl, of course, in Pasadena, and dismantle the Rams team 31-19. Actually, you could say that I'm just trying to correct myself. The Rams put up a decent effort, of course, in that game, but where it's like, it never happened, of course. It was never happened. That's what happens when you have Franco Harris running down and Terry Bradshaw being MVP. But the problem is, they didn't win Super Bowl 15. In fact, they didn't even three-peat, which leads us all the way to Super Bowl 23, in which the San Francisco 49ers won their very first Super Bowl at the Joe Robbie Stadium, in which they put the dagger into the Cincinnati Bengals on the incredible drive by Joe Montana and the incredible touchdown by John Taylor, probably the biggest touchdown he ever had in his career and his life, of course. And that was the start of the mighty dominance of the San Francisco 49ers back in the 80s, of course. That and a couple of two Super Bowls he won, again, and one of them against the Cincinnati Bengals. Then we get to Super Bowl 24, the absolute beatdown of John Elway and the Denver Broncos, in which Joe Montana lit up the Denver defense for 5 touchdowns. And Jerry Rice was absolutely a beast with those 3 touchdowns. Like, whew. I don't even need to talk about that Super Bowl. That was an absolute whipping. But in 1991, they have an opportunity to win a third straight Super Bowl by beating the Giants. And of course, Joe Montana got injured. Steve Young came in. And then, of course, New York Giants winning on a field goal. And that was the Pat Summerall famous call. There'll be no three-peat. So there goes San Francisco chances of winning 3 in a row. And then we get to Dallas. The famous Jerry Jones, Jimmy Johnson Dallas. The Jimmy's Boys, if you want to call it. And this was them dominating in the 90s, beating on those Buffalo Bills in an absolute ass whooping 52-17, which by the way was the only weird thing is because of Leon Lent, getting the ball back from the fumble and then putting it down and then of course getting batted, of course. But this was a domination from start to finish. Troy Aikman being MVP with 4 touchdowns was brutal. And then they did it again against the same team just a year later in the Georgia Dome. 30-13 against the Buffalo Bills. They won their 4th Super Bowl, of course. Troy Aikman and Jimmy Kelly did not do anything, but Emmitt Smith was absolutely a beast. 2 touchdowns, 132 on 30 carries. And this was an amazing, amazing, dominating team with all the great stars, all the great players. But unfortunately, we all know what happened with Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. They went Splitsville, and Dallas never even get back. In fact, they were go back to one more Super Bowl, but never even reached the heights they have since. That leads us to another attempt. The Denver Broncos, in which John Elway finally got the monkey off his back after so many years of failure, of carrying the team on his back for the Denver Broncos for so many years. And it wasn't him who managed to win the Super Bowl. It was Terrell Davis just running all over the Packers, despite having blurred vision, of course. 3 touchdowns, 157 yards carry, and 30 yards. And for John Elway to finally have a Super Bowl moment, incredible. Incredible. That's incredible. This one's for John. And then he decided, you know what, I'm going to come back another year and won another Super Bowl on the back of a touchdown interception on a touchdown 18-29, 336 opponents, and an MVP in that Super Bowl as they beat down the Dirty Bird and Dan Reeves Falcons. And, of course, Doug Enderberg, of course, his former backup, John Elway's former backup, of course. And this game was not even close again. It was a dominant performance by the Denver Broncos. And then after that, John Elway decided to hang up his laces and call it a career. And Denver Broncos have not even been, they won a Super Bowl in Super Bowl 50, but they didn't repeat. Honestly, they never repeat. And that leads us to the latest attempt before this, the New England Patriots, the mighty New England Patriots, in which they first beat Carolina in one of the weirdest Super Bowls ever, in which all the scoring came in the second and fourth quarter. Tom Brady was excellent, 3 touchdowns. He was MVP, of course. The rest of the team were incredible. Kevin Falk, Deion Branch, Troy Brown, and you got Mike Vrabel, who's coaching the team, by the way, who's coaching this Patriots team to a Super Bowl. Not the current Patriots team, but actually not this Patriots team, the current Patriots team, of course. And you got a lot of great stars in that Bill Belichick team, of course, which, I'm going to say it right now, should be a first ballot Hall of Fame. That's all I'm going to say. And then we get into Super Bowl 39, in which they beat up a Philadelphia Eagles team with Terrell Owens playing on one leg. And Philadelphia just wasted so many time, of course. Who couldn't drive the ball and just win the game, of course. And that was another Tom Brady performance. Although Tom Brady now win MVP, was Deion Branch, who was immense with 11 catches for 133 yards. And everybody was thinking Tom Brady and that Patriots dynasty would win 3 straight in a row, and didn't happen. So let me recap. The Packers did not did it in the first 2 Super Bowls. They didn't do it in the original Super Bowl era. Then the Dolphins tried to do it, but didn't. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers did it not once, but twice, and couldn't do it. And then the San Francisco 49ers, the great 49ers teams of the 80s, could not do it. And then you got the mighty Cowboys under Jimmy Johnson. They couldn't do it. And then you got Denver Broncos under John Elway in the fading sun. Couldn't do it. And then they got the early inklings of the most dynastic team in all of NFL with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and the mighty New England Patriots winning those 2 Super Bowls. And that leads us into this modern Super Bowl. I've already talked about it 2 days ago when Kansas City Chiefs beat the Eagles to win their 3rd Super Bowl, but their 3rd in the last, what you said, the 2nd in the last 5 years. Then they faced off against the San Francisco 49ers again in Super Bowl 58 and beat them in overtime to win their 2nd straight Super Bowl, the first since the Patriots did it way back when. And now they have an opportunity to do something that no NFL team in the history of the Super Bowl has ever done. Is that to pull off a 3-peat. I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is they've already made history by making it to 3 straight Super Bowls, something that no team ever team has ever done it since. Not even the Patriots can even done it. The bad news is the team that they beat in Super Bowl 57 came back with a vengeance. And oh boy, they came back with a vengeance. Which leads us to the final review of the Super Bowls for now, anyways. We are at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. It is February 9, 2025. It is Super Bowl 59. It is the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. A chance of history repeated itself or a chance of revenge. And if you look at the scoreline, this was vengeance. This was absolute vengeance by the Eagles. It was not even close. I believe if you look at the scoreline, this game was a wrap by the end of like the second half or the third quarter, by the way. The 2 notable things that happened in the Super Bowl is, one, you notice that this took place on the 9th of February 2025. Just a month ago, of course, the tragedy that happened in New Orleans involving a truck driver ramming over some people that happens in New Year's Eve at that time, or New Year's Day. And it was horrific, of course. So mention about it. I mean, there was a CBS reporter even mentioned about it that still haunts her. And to all the people in New Orleans that have gone through this, my heart goes out to you guys, and I hope you're okay. Second biggest thing about the Super Bowl, it was not even the game itself. Oh no, the game was pretty much close. It was not even a close game, to be honest. But the viewership. Because this Super Bowl went on to smash so much viewership out the window. It was watched by 127.7 million and 14.5 on the streaming broadcast. That is insane. And the biggest of them all is the fact that Kendrick Lamar pulled off a victory lap at this Super Bowl. Yes, this was the Super Bowl, by the way, which Kendrick Lamar buried Drake 6 feet under with that Super Bowl performance. They not like us just pretty much buried Drake all downhill. But the halftime show itself, just like the entire, it's like the diss track, They Not Like Us, just pretty much ending Drake's career. Him being the Super Bowl halftime show was like the cherry on top of the cake. And lastly, and this is personal for me, I was not in Jamaica when I do my Super Bowls. The Super Bowls that I watched, the last 2 Super Bowls I watched I was in Jamaica at that time. I was at work with my dad, and I was at home with my dad watching those 2 Super Bowls. This Super Bowl, I was not with my dad. I was in Nantucket, by the way. I was in Nantucket spending time with my grandmother. Hello, Grandma. This is Hakeem. Love you. And this is the first time I ever get to watch a Super Bowl in America, which is weird because consider the fact that I'm in Jamaica and the only thing that happens in Jamaica weather wise is sun and rain, nothing else. And I never got to see snow. Like in my entire lifetime, I never got to see snow until that day when the Super Bowl happens. And it was like a frozen tundra. We never even got to go anywhere, let's be honest. And it was like the perfect storm to happen. Like I got my good food and all kinds of stuff. I get to watch the Super Bowl alone and try to not make any noise, of course, because there are people behind me. But I get to watch the Super Bowl in America, which is amazing and frightening at the same time because of the government, of course. but I enjoyed it, of course, even though the game sadly did not enjoy me as much because the Eagles put belt to ass in that Super Bowl, of course. And by the way, I didn't even put who was MVP of the Super Bowl. I think Jalen Hurts was. Yeah, Jalen Hurts was MVP. Yeah, he was MVP and rightfully deserved, of course, for that performance because he was the best performing Super Bowl when their team lost to the Eagles or lost to the Chiefs in Super Bowl 57. And he was the best player on that team on the field when they won Super Bowl 59. After all the criticism talking about he cannot throw or he's not a great quarterback, of course. Well, does winning a Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs pretty much shut him up? Not quite, but it pretty much justified the point, I guess. Anyways, it's time for me to look at the stats. Patrick Mahomes, 21 to 32 for 257 yards, 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. But unfortunately, let's just say that two of those interceptions or 2 of those touchdowns came in pretty much garbage time. This was pretty much when the game was pretty much up. So it pretty much skews the statistics, of course. Jalen Hurts' MVP of this Super Bowl was 17 to 22, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And he was brilliant on the rushing. 11 rushes for 172 yards, 6.55 a carry, and a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes, of course, carried for 4 times, 25 yards to 6.25 a carry. Kareem Hunt 3 times for 9 yards and 3 a carry. Isaiah Pacheco 3 yards for 7 yards a carry at 2.33 a carry. And this was significant, of course, because Kansas City cannot even run the ball to even save their lives. The reason why Kansas City made the Super Bowl is because of Patrick Mahomes' brilliantness, some crazy calls going for them, and that was it. It almost feels like the NFL just wanted to give the Chiefs the Super Bowl, of course. Kind of like the years when they're trying to get the Patriots the Super Bowls. But thankfully, what happens when you don't rush the ball well, you rely too much on Patrick Mahomes, and you got a really good defense by the Eagles. A really good defense by the Eagles. Well, you get the result like that. So this for many Chiefs fans, and by the way, Taylor Swift just left the building, of course, during that Super Bowl. It was humbling to see a girl who's born Philadelphian, who's now marrying Travis Kelce, one of the receivers for the Kansas City Chiefs, get humbled by her hometown team. I have to say, man, it is the most, watching that Super Bowl for many Chiefs fans or anti-Chiefs fans, it's the most humbling experience ever. This was 60 minutes of humble pie served on them. It was amazing. Anyways, Saquon Barkley, the MVP of the offensive player of the year, because MVP doesn't give a damn about running backs, am I right? Or defense. It is what it is. He was bottled up. He was not the main reason why they won this game. The Chiefs did a good job containing him. And by the way, this guy was on a heater. Saquon Barkley was on a heater that year. I'm going to show you the stats for this because let's remember, everybody, that the Giants pretty much screwed him up in more ways than one with letting Saquon Barkley go to not only a team but a divisional rival in the Eagles. And what did he do? What did he do in that time? He did this. 2,005 yards. He was about to break Eric Dickerson's single season record of probably the most rushing yards in a regular season ever. He was about to do it. He's about to pull it off, but he decided to sit out. And While I said it was painful that we don't get the record, of course, you can understand that short term pain means long term gain. And listen, considering he got the ring right now, I ain't mad at him. I think Giants fans are be mad at the front office that let Saquon Barkley go, and it was probably the biggest middle finger to probably every Giants fan, of course. So yeah, yeah, that sucks. But Saquon Barkley was not great in the Super Bowl, though. But he was a reason why this team was in the Super Bowl to begin with. And he was brilliant against the Rams, scoring those two incredible touchdowns, including the one in the snow, of course, in the divisional round. And of course, he was brilliant in the Washington game when he scored the touchdown in the championship round. So he was brilliant in the playoffs, and he was not great in the Super Bowl, but that does not take away the accomplishment of what Saquon Barkley has done. He just run away. He just run like a chicken, of course, like all those chickens, like crazy chickens, of course, barking and all kinds of stuff. Just, an incredible player, an incredible moment, of course, for him. And by these metrics alone, it's amazing. It's amazing that he never get MVP. If your guy did not get the second most rushing yards in regular season history behind our incredible offensive line that knows how to tush push, know how to block and all kinds of stuff. And by the way, I forgot one piece of information about Super Bowl 57 that I forgot to mention about it in my thing. I kind of slipped out of my mind. This was the first brother versus brother Super Bowl in history. Playing brothers, by the way. The Super Bowl that I mentioned with Ravens and 49ers, that was the brothers versus brothers coaching the Super Bowl. This Super Bowl was between Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce, by the way. Little New Heights reference, I guess, if you want to add me, of course. But I digress. Yeah. When you have almost 2,000 yards with an incredible offensive line, you don't get MVP recognition. Like, what are we doing with the MVP voting? It's like the same thing with the Hall of Fame voting. What are we doing with those voting? Anyways, I digress. The the receiving, of course. Xavier Worthy, 8 catches for 157 yards, 19.6 and 2 touchdowns. Most of them in garbage time. Travis Kelce, 4 catches for 39 yards and 9.75 a pop. DeAndre Hopkins, 2 catches for 18 yards and 9 a pop and a touchdown. Those were mostly garbage time. Saquon Barkley, 6 catches for 40 yards and 6.67 a pop. Devontae Smith, 4 catches for 69 yards and 17.25 a pop. Nice. And a touchdown. A.J. Brown, who was spending more time, I think A.J. Brown was kind of like reading a book during out the playoffs, of course. Mentally calm himself. 3 catches for 43 yards and 14.33 a pop and a touchdown. The defense was a different story. The defense was where the whole thing happens. And remember that Super Bowl that I mentioned, Super Bowl 55, in which, Patrick Mahomes run for his life against the mighty Buccaneers defense? This Super Bowl is kind of like the exact same, the exact repeat of that. Kansas City defense did not do anything much. Although interception by Brandon Cook and 4 tackles, Drew Tranquill with a sack and 11 tackles, George Karlaftis III with a sack and 4 tackles, Nick Bolton 9 tackles, Justin Reed 7 tackles, Shamari Corner 6 tackles, Trent McDuffie, Mike Pennell, and Tershawn Warden 5 tackles, Leo Chenal, Jaden Hicks 4 tackles, and Charles Emenhu 3 tackles. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the entire game turned. The Eagles defense, which was absolutely elite. Absolutely elite. Let me just tell you the scoreline. Zach Baum, interception, 7 tackles. Cooper DeJean with a 38-yard interception return touchdown and 3 tackles. You know why this was significant, of course? Why this is important? It was his birthday. I kid you not. This happened on his birthday. I believe he's the first ever player to score a touchdown on his birthday. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. But we're not done glazing the Eagles defense. No. Josh Sweat, 2.5 sacks and 6 tackles. Milton Williams, 2 sacks and fumble recovery and forced fumble. Jordan Davis, sack and 2 tackles. J.Alex Carter, a half a sack and 2 tackles. Oren Burks, 5 tackles. Reed Blankenship, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, 3 tackles. Kenneth Gainwell and Darius Slay, 2 tackles. And I didn't even mention Carter. I didn't even mention J.D. I didn't even mention another player that was overrated. Let me just let me just see. I forgot to mention another player. I should have put him in, but that's how good the Eagles defense were that game. That was really good about how the Eagles defense were that game. Let me just see the defense. Jaden Carter. I think it's Jaden Carter, right? I believe it was Jaden Carter who was. I believe was a non-factor in this game. I didn't put him in the stats, but he was really good for the Eagles defense. Let's see. Yeah, Jalen Carter. He only made 2 quarterback hits. Like he didn't do anything much in this game, but his presence alone just make this entire defense of the Eagles just stand out like a sore thumb and just make Patrick Mahomes feel human. Like they relied so much on Patrick Mahomes to win everything, and now in the game that they needed him most, he got humanized, which pretty much sums up everything about the Super Bowl. And of course, the following season, in which he was the only thing that ever happened to the Chiefs until his ACL got broke. Yeah, this is what happens when you're relying too much on a quarterback these days. A 30-plus-year-old quarterback. But for the Eagles, it was an absolute domination. And by the way, let me do special teams. Jake Elliott 4 for 4 on extra points and 4 for 4 on field goals. Kansas City did not do any kicking because they go for 2, and it's a garbage time, of course. KC 235, the Eagles 345. KC with 3 turnovers, Philadelphia 1. This was domination from the jump. Absolute domination from the jump. I don't even need to show you scorecards. This was brutal. This was started off with a run up the middle with the tush push, and then it was a field goal, and then a interception by Cooper DeJean on his birthday to make it 17-0, and it was 24-0 when Jalen Hurts has it to AJ Brown, and then a Jake Elliott field goal. Of course, that was around the third quarter, and then a pass by Devontae Smith by Jalen Hurts to make it 34-0. The game was a wrap. 34-0, and around the third quarter, the game was over at this point. The way the Eagles defense dominated the game and all kinds of stuff, it did not make the score line any more justice. You're thinking this is an 18-point game. This was 34-0 in the third quarter. This was a wrap. I mean, the halftime show was the only good entertainment we have. And by the way, to consider the circumstances, it was the best entertainment we have. The highest peaked Super Bowl halftime show ever. And man, yeah, the Chiefs 3-peat dynasty just died at the hands of the team that avenged them. It's full circle, I guess. And for this incredible team coached by Nick Sirianni, who can be criticized a lot, of course, but you can't criticize his success, of course, making it to 2 Super Bowls, winning one of them against the mighty Chiefs. Can't criticize that one, of course, even though his choices of offensive coordinator needs to be questioned, of course. But at the same time, what a performance by Jalen Hurts. What a performance by the entire Eagles defense. What a performance by A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to face off against the same team that beat you. And to put up not a 48-minute beatdown. Not a 60-minute beatdown. But a thorough performance by the Eagles to beat the Chiefs is amazing. It's an absolute amazing work. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but this is the last ever Super Bowl review. But it's not the last one. We have one more Super Bowl review left. And I'm recording this on the 5th of February. It'll be on the 5th of February by the time it comes out. Let me see if I get it right. I'm talking in the future. Yes, the 5th of February, this video will come out. In 3 days from now, we will have the 60th version of the Super Bowl. And I will review this, but I just wanted to look at this and saying, yep, this is Super Bowl 60. February 8, 2026 at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California. Yes, this is the same stadium as the 50th Super Bowl, of course. And it's a rematch of Super Bowl 49 between the Patriots and Seahawks, the Malcolm Butler interception in the goal line, of course. And this matchup is between, check notes, Sam Darnold and Drake May. Oh my! And I will be reviewing that Super Bowl and then pretty much put a cap to all the Super Bowl reviews. And guys, I want to say something here. thank you all for making me ramble about these Super Bowls, talking about them, learning about them, all this kind of stuff, the historical nature because of it. I love these games to death. It is the most incredible thing to ever happen in football. It is the one time of the year when we all have to gather around, put our differences aside, and just watch some incredible football with some entertainment and all kinds of stuff. And Bad Bunny, by the way, will be performing the Super Bowl. Yes, a Puerto Rican actually performing the Super Bowl in America. Nothing too shady, I guess. I wanted to say that this is going to be a great Super Bowl. I hope it'll be a great game. I I'm probably gonna preview it later on, but of course I have so many busy things to go on. But maybe I may not preview the Super Bowl, or maybe I'll review the Super Bowl as a way to cap off the 60 Super Bowl. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe to this video, and I will see you all in the next couple of days for the 60th and final Super Bowl review. Bye bye.